Hello, welcome to the data channel and you're watching Python Bootcamp for Data Professional and as part of this topic 19, so we'll be discussing specifically about Python tuples, which is one of the data type or data structure you can call in Python. So we will discuss what is tuples and how we can use tuples and what are the cases when you can use tuples with some real-time examples where the tuples can be used or applied, right? So before proceeding, if you're new to this channel, we would recommend you to please subscribe and also press bell button for instant notifications. So let's get started. Tuple in Python is a collection of ordered and immutable elements. So when you say ordered, it is like a list, right? It is ordered, but unlike list, it is immutable. So list are mutable. That means any elements in the list can be changed, right? But in case of tuples, it is not true. It is like once you define a particular element in a tuple, so that cannot be changed or never be changed, right? So once a tuple is created, you cannot change its value or its order of its element as well. And tuples are used for storing data that shouldn't be modified or and are often used to group related data. So let's take an example, right? So but before that, like what are the topics that we'll be discussing in this video is first is create tuples. So what are the ways to create tuples, right? And then we will see how do we access tuple elements, right? So next we will see about so maybe like couple of tuple operations, right? So what are the different tuple operations you can perform, like concatenation or length, taking length and etc. And we also discuss why tuples are immutable in nature, right? And we will discuss like nested tuples and certain tuple methods, basically inbuilt methods in tuples, right? And how do you unpack tuples? So that also we will discuss. Okay. And we will take certain use cases of tuples where the tuples are really used or applied. In some cases, and also finally we will take some real-time use cases where it is applied in different real-time projects. We will discuss that. Okay. So with that, let us start about creating the tuple. How do you create a empty tuple? Is you'll just define a So now let's start creating a tuples. So how do you create a tuple? Empty tuple is you just give empty tuple equals to or any variable, right? And you assign that with a opening brace and closing braces, right? So similarly, how you used to define a list with a opening square brace and a closing square brace and dictionary with opening flower brace and closing with flower brace. So where you define list and dictionary. So in case of tuples, you'll use a braces here, simple braces to create a tuple. So this is how you create a tuple. And one important thing here is if you want to define a tuple with a single character or single element, so then you cannot do this. So even though if you do this, it is not considered as a tuple, right? So what you need to do is you can give one comma, so then only it will be considered as a tuple. So here the comma is important, right? So when you want to define a single element in a tuple, so the comma is really important so that it will be considered as a single element tuple. So this is what we call as a single element tuple. And then we have a multi-element tuple, right? So multi-element tuple is again it's pretty much simple. So you can just define a multi-element tuple just like this. So you can have 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4. So this is more readable, but the more confusing part is this, right? And it can be asked in an interview like how do you define a single element tuple? So always remember single element tuple is 1 and then comma, so or any element, right? So you can give any like any string also here and then comma, so this is considered as a tuple. So if you give this without comma, this is not a tuple, so this will be considered as a string or something, right? So let's try to see, it is considered as a string. Okay, so that is why we need to give comma here, so then it will be considered as a tuple. So this is a single element tuple and this is a multi-element tuple. So hope the single element is more clear, and multi-element also you are able to follow, and the difference between tuple and list is here it is a simple brace open and close. And then we have without parenthesis, right? So you can do a tuple packing. So something called as tuple packing. So what that means is so you can have a tuple packing like something like this. So you can define this tuple packing, and then so when you try to print the type of this tuple packing, so it gives the value like same tuple, right? So this is also tuple, and when you define this multi-element tuple, so this is also same. It is one and the same kind of thing, right? So this is like just a way of defining it in a tuple packing method. So both are tuples here. So next is using tuple constructor. So we have something called as tuple constructor. So this is an example of that, right? Like where you define this is another way of defining a tuple where you give a tuple as a keyword. This is a keyword, and then open the brace and close the brace, and within the square braces you can give the like a kind of list, right? So this will become a tuple from list, and then you say tuple from string. This is another way you can just define. So both are, if you see, like both are tuples here. So put tuple from list and tuple first from string. So both are tuples. So either you define tuple in this way, right? Or you can define tuple in this way, or you can define a tuple using a keyword tuple and then define a list of tuples. Okay, and you can also have a string of like from the string also you can define a tuple like this, right? So it is using the tuple keyword. And this is a basically tuple is a constructor here. So it is an inbuilt constructor, and you are passing this list so that it is going inside and creating this tuples for you. This is just another way of creating a tuples. And then now we know that how do we create the different ways of creating the tuples we knew, right? So now we will go back and see go next and see like how to access tuples. So let's take a tuple as an example. So this is one tuple, right? So now, if you want to access the first element of the tuple, it is as simple as how do we do in case of the list. So just to print off my tuple of 0 and then it will print 10. So 1 will be 20, etc. Right? And then similarly minus 1, as we know in case of list also we used to do this same thing. So it will give the last element when you do minus 1. So we have a slicing option also, similarly how we did in lists, right? So if you give like 1 comma 4, it will take from first element to fourth element. First element is 20th, zeroth element is 10. So it's from 1 to fourth index. And you can also give just 4 here. So that means it will be 0 to 4. It is as good as 0 to 4, right? Sorry. It is as good as 0 to 4. And you can even give like 2 colon 2 colon, and this is as good as giving 2 is to 5, right? That means it is taking till the end, so you are not giving the end here, so it will take till whatever the elements are there. So it is good if you don't know the length, right? So you can just give 2 colon, and you can also give say minus 2, for example. Minus 2, it will be from the back, it will come from the back, right? So this is 0, this is minus 1, this is minus 2. So minus 2 to till end of this, that means 40 to 40 and 50. Okay, so now we this is what we call it as a slicing of tuples. So we understood slicing of tuples, right? So now let us go to the next concept where we do a tuple operations, where we will try to merge two tuples and see or combine two tuples. We will just combine tuples equals to tuple 1 plus tuple 2. So this is again very similar to how the list operations. So if you really see, the tuple operations are very similar to the list operation apart from this braces, and only thing is you cannot change the tuple here. So that is the only difference between list and tuples, right? Suppose in the list we just used to give like here whatever I'm accessing, right? So particular element is there, my tuple of 2, right? So if I try to print this, so it is giving 30. But however, if I want to assign a particular value for this tuple, I want to change the value, right? So it is giving error. So tuple object does not support item assignment. That is where we call tuple as a immutable. They cannot be changed once it is defined. Hope this particular point is very clear. Okay. And the next is repetition. So repetition is very similar how we used in the list, right? So we can repeat the tuples multiple times. Okay. So repeated you can print and see. So it is repeating the same tuple 2 times. When you do tuple star and how many times you want to repeat that. And you have something called as membership. You can check the membership of a particular element in the tuple. Suppose like I want to see print 2 in tuple. So this will return a true or false value. Tuple, say tuple 1, right? It is true because it is present in tuple 1. Suppose I give 20, it gives false because 20 is not present in the tuple 1. So it gives the boolean value basically, right? And you can take the length of the tuple also. So it is very simple like print len of tuple 1. So it will give how many elements are that in that list. There are 3 elements in tuple 1. That's why we have a result 3. And so next we will see nested tuples. So similarly how we can create a nested list. So you can create a nested tuples here. So this is example of nested tuple. So this is the first element, this is second element, and these two combined is a third element, but they are itself a tuple again, right? And this is the third element, but there is inside again there is 2 elements, and the first element is just an integer and second element is again a tuple. So when you try to access these elements, right? So you give nested tuple of say 2, you will give 3 comma 4. But if you want to access in this, if you want to access second element again, right? I can give again 2 comma 2. Sorry, this is the first element, right? So you will get 4. It is 0 and 1, right? And suppose if I go to 3, 3 comma 1 is 6 7, right? And then 3 comma 1, in that I want to access first element again. That means I want to access 6 from this, right? So then you can give 3 1 0. So then you will give 6 as a result. So this is how we access or create a nested tuples. And then we have a nested inbuilt tuples. So we will see what are the inbuilt methods we have to actually count the number of elements in the tuple and etc., right? So we will just try to print the tuples here, tuples with the duplicates, right? And dot, there is a count and then we will give 2. So here as you can see we were like the count as we can see, right? So the tuples there are if you want to do a count of 2 elements, the number 2, so it is occurring 2 times. Okay, suppose if I give 3, so 3 is occurring 3 times. If I give 20, so which is not existing, it will give 0 times. And we can have an index also. You can check the index of a particular element, right? So how do we do that is print of tuple. Then let me close this and then see. So print of tuple with duplicates, index of 2. So index of 2 is what? So it is 1. So it is giving the first occurrence if you really see, right? And then if you do an index of 3, it will give you the first occurrence 0 1 2 3. Okay, if the 3 is found at starting only, so then we will get the index of 3 at the first index only. Okay, so it is giving the position of the particular element. So then we have something called as unpacking tuples. So what is unpacking is, so this is a tuple, simple tuple, right? And then how do you unpack the tuples? You can do just x comma y equals to point. So unpacking means this is a packed, right? This is packed in one element called point. Suppose you want to split it into multiple values. Okay, so then you are giving assigning that to the point is assigned to these two like variables. So then it is unpacked. Suppose if I try to print of type of point, so it is giving tuple. But in the same case, if I do print of type of x, so then it is an integer because it is unpacked, and the value of x here will be, it will be assigned with the first element, that is 10. So this is what we call as a unpacking. So there is, you can do extending unpacking, extended unpacking also. So extended unpacking means you can take the rest of the elements. Suppose this is my like if I don't know how many elements are there, in that case, like maybe first two elements you can assign to first two elements here, and star you can give another variable here, c or rest. Okay, so that will be assigned with the rest of the elements. Okay, suppose I do print of a, in this case it will become 1, but if I do print of rest, so then it is 3 comma 4 comma 5, which is a list actually. This is a list because that is why it's coming in a square basis. So now let us take an example of where exactly in different cases the tuples can be used. So one case we can take where we want to return multiple values from a function. Okay, let's take this example. So here, as you can see, we have a user-defined function which is passed with 0 arguments, and then username is John Doe and age is 30. So we are trying to return username and age of the person. So now if I do get user, so it is printing John Doe and 30. So this is a actual tuple unpacking, right? So you are actually returning the value. So you are printing the user here, and user will go and get the returning multiple values from a particular function. So in this case, it is a tuple. So as you can see, so if you do a print of type of user, so here in this case it is a tuple. Okay, so this is one of the case, right? Because why we need to use this, because it is a, you need not have a list here, right? So this is, you are returning x comma y, so our username comma age, that means it is a tuple. So why we are passing this instead of list, why we are passing as tuple is there is no need of list here. So this is, we want a immutable value which doesn't change, right? So this is our use case. So that's why we are passing tuples here, or using tuples in this case. So next use case is using tuples as a dictionary keys. So you can even use this in these scenarios, right? Where say for example you have this location dictionary, but this location dictionary is having a key as a tuple. So this is a tuple. Key is a tuple here, and value is a city. Key is a tuple and value is a city. Okay. So now if you try to print the location of this particular location, and the output is New York. So this is a latitude and longitude uh, like readings, and if you access that readings, which is a key in this case, which is a combination of latitude and longitude, which we can which we have defined as a tuple. And why we are using this in this case as a tuple is, it this case latitude longitude never changes, right? It always be constant value. So that is why we, it is a case where, typical case where we can use tuples. And then we have a storing related data together. In that scenario also we can use a tuple, where we have a person, right? And then we have a, like, there are three elements in this, and then you print a person, right? So this is a attribute of one particular person, right? So then you want to store this logically, this is belongs to one particular person, that is why we want to create that. Okay. And so mainly, where we want to have a data integrity, right? So data integrity means where we want to maintain the data consistency or integrity in over the applications. In that case, tuples are very comes in very are very handy, right? Because in these cases, right, so we use a tuple to ensure the data remains unchanged. Like suppose you have a case where you have a dimensions, you want to define dimensions, and you have this value and this is always constant. You want to, this will never change over the course of the project or course of the code, right? So then you can define that so that you can make sure that this value never changes. But you might be wondering, like as we understood, tuples in Python are immutable, right? Meaning their values cannot be changed once they are created. However, you can create a new tuple that reflects the change you want. Here are maybe like a couple of methods you can use. So first is, suppose this is a original tuple, right? And then you kind of convert that to a new tuple here. So this is my original tuple and this is a new tuple. Okay. And then you modify that list and assign it to a, you are just modifying that particular list here. So tuple, so you're converting that. So here you are convert, there is a tuple. So you are taking that tuple and converting that to list. And the element of that list, the second element, that means first index, you are changing to 2. And then you are again converting that back to a tuple. So that way you can actually still change the element in the tuple. But please note that this is in the rare cases you will do that because you are breaking the use of or the advantage of or the feature of using tuple. But in rare scenario where you really want to change some value in tuple, but it is not a straightforward, as you saw, you need to convert that to a list and then do the operation of modification and then again write it back or convert that list into a tuple. Or else you can create a new tuple by slicing and concatenating parts of the original tuple along with a new value. So that is also possible. Okay. So here in this case as well, like you can see, this is my original tuple, and so then you can perform something like this. Okay. So now if I try to print my tuple, so it has actually changed the value, right? But here you're creating a new tuple with a desired change. So it is a new tuple itself. So you were initially was 10, 20, 30, 40, but here you are doing my tuple, want to take certain values from here and then do plus operation. You are taking another value and then my tuple of these values you are taking. So it is end of the day, what we are saying is it is not straightforward way again, right? So there are many different approaches you can use, even uh, like something called as tuple comprehension. It is an indirect way again. So although tuple comprehension doesn't exist, you can achieve a smaller effect using a generator expression within a tuple. So in this case, you can do something like this, and you can create a new tuple and then print a tuple. So here, create a new tuple with a desired change using a tuple comprehension. This is like a list comprehension. You are doing a tuple comprehension here, and you are changing the value and assigning to my tuple. So this is also again an indirect way of doing it. You are changing the values here. Okay, so there are different methods of doing it, but while tuples are immutable, do not allow direct modification. You can still achieve a desired change by converting the tuple to list and back, or creating a new tuple by slicing and dicing and concatenation, or using helper functions. So these methods may allow you to effectively change the values in the tuple while maintaining the immutable property of the tuples in Python, right? So these are different ways. And now let us finally understand where exactly tuples are used in real-time scenarios. So let's take a operation, database operations, right? Tuples are widely used in different use cases because of their immutability and efficiency. So here are some examples we can think of, right? So one is database records. So where you want to deal with the database record scenarios, um, where you have a code something like this. In tuples can represent rows returned by queries, and each tuple holds a single record. right? So as you can see here, so we are connecting to a SQL database here, and that we are executing to create a table here, and then we are inserting the values, and then we are fetching the records, and each row in this is a tuple. So that is why the output is coming as a tuple here. We are getting it as a tuple. Okay, so it is, you can replicate the database operations using tuples here, but we cannot change the values. Make sure it is good for reading but not for writing or updating the database operation. In that case you have to choose a list. So then we can have a geospatial data, which is, I think, which is really good, because when there is a scenario of latitude longitude, right? So where we can have which doesn't change. So New York is a key and this is the latitude longitude or coordinates. And then if you try to print this, where it will say New York is a key and this is a value, but this is actually a dictionary. Location is a dictionary, key is a string, value is a tuple. Okay, so this never changes, right? The combination of this will never change. So that is why we use usually something like tuples, which will never change. And most importantly, one of the widely used use case, I would say, is application configuration, because application configuration also never changes most of the times, and you want to keep that constant, right? And in this case also, let me take up application configuration, something like this, right? So you have a host name, you define a host name port, you have some settings you want to do, or you have some configurations, and then if you try to execute this, right, so you will get all of these details. And suppose you have a case where you can have, this is a prod app configuration, and there is something called as, you have a UAT or test or whatever, right? So the lower environment, and then so prod you are printing here, and similarly you can use non-prod as well. So you can, in that way you can define these configurations, or you can have a number of configurations defined here in a particular file, and make sure that these values are never touched or never changed over the course of the code execution, right? And another scenario is like where you are using a data science or machine learning use cases. Even in that cases, the tuples can be used, right? Let's take example. So where we have a model parameters, right? So this is a model parameter where you are defining, and it's a tuple inside tuple, and you are this is one tuple where it is a combination of a string and a value. So, and you are defining for each model configuration you have values, and then you want to traverse through that and create a tuple out of it, so you can use in that scenario. Okay, and there might be another scenario where you want to use like immutable data structures as well, right? So where you have immutable data structures, when creating a complex data structures, tuples ensures a part of a structure remains immutable, right? So here is a graph. So it's a dictionary, but key is a tuple and value is a integer. So then again, you want to traverse that and see how exactly this looks like. So you have a edge 0, 1 has weight 1. So this is a graph, right? So you are defining it as a graph, and 0, 1 is 1 and 0, 2 is 3. So whatever. So these are the different use cases you can think of, and these are just a limited number of use cases. You can just explore different use cases and put comment in the comment section. We'll try to answer those any questions, if any particular questions you have, right? And hope this was useful. Thanks for watching.